If you're okay with this, I'd like to take a picture. I'll explain why in a sec. Well, it's for my Twitter account. If you don't want to be on my Twitter account, just go like, oh, God, I don't want to be on your Twitter account, and you won't be on my Twitter account. Oh, you guys, I'm going to call on you guys later. You're the presentation people, aren't you? I'm going to need that help later. OK, hang on. All right, this is for my Twitter account, which I'll explain later. Now, well, actually, let me just call the presentation people for a minute. I need you guys to say, we did. All right, I'm going to call on you later for that. Just make sure. You guys can join in and be even louder, which I'm sure you can be. So the first question I have is, has anybody ever accused you of being a daydreamer? You have just unlocked the #1 skill in my profession. I make my living, believe it or not, off of designing things. I happen to design games. The second question I have for you is, are you personally sure you could design a better Snapchat? How are you going to do that? How do you think you'd go about doing that? Well, yeah, sure, I'll go with that. Sure. Well, you would write it down on paper, for starters, if you wanted to sketch it out, and then you might put that on a computer, and then you would build it with code. And code is just another language, and if you can learn Irish, you can learn code, I can assure you, it's easier. So I'm a game designer, as I said, or as I may not have said, but I can design all kinds of stuff. Recently, I worked on a game with HPE that was designed to teach girls about cybersecurity and the issues that people can fall into with that. I happen to design video games. Traditionally, like the one I'm working on now is a PS4, Xbox, Switch, and PC title. It's not announced yet. I wish I could tell you about it, but eventually, hopefully this coming year, at some point in time, we will be able to. Now, when I say I'm a game designer, to most people, probably there's a fourth thing that people think is, really? But I got started designing games actually when I was really young, and I entered the industry professionally when I was 15. Back then, the notion of being a game designer for a living, well, frankly, I'm lucky. My brother's a professional musician, so I'm sure him rolling up saying, I want to be a rock star, made me look normal in comparison. But people normally ask 3 questions, and they are these. First, did I make Minecraft? And I didn't. I didn't make Minecraft. I didn't make Fortnite. I know the people who made them. But if I had made Minecraft, I'd have a fleet of Lamborghinis outside. I wouldn't even be driving them because I would float here somehow by balloons if I had that much money, I guess. So no, I didn't make Minecraft. The next one is, do I spend all day playing games? What do you think? You're wrong. I actually do spend all day playing games, but they're broken. My job is to make those games work. So just imagine if you knew how to code. Like, you know when you put together a presentation for class and the very first round of it kind of looks like a disaster of images copied from Google? Or maybe that's just me, like this one. When you're making presentations or you're making software, they're not so great right out of the bat. You do the best you can do, and then once they get good, once you've played them enough and you're like, this needs to change and that needs to change, out they go, and then I get to work on a new thing. So what does a game designer actually do? Well, we do lots of different things, but our primary goal is to create virtual worlds for you to go into. And it doesn't have to be something gigantic like, say, World of Warcraft or Minecraft. It can be something small, like, I don't know, Bejeweled Blitz or Candy Crush, or like games like Florence, or I'm trying to think of some really great games this year. The new God of War is getting a lot of press, which I like that game. But anyway, we create these experiences, and when I talk about daydreaming, like, I really mean things like that. Like yesterday I was talking with a physicist, as I'm sure many of you do, and I was saying, like, how come, like, here's something that fascinates my weird head. Your teacher might be talking to you, but I might be wondering, why does that chair, which I know is made of molecules and atoms, like everything else, how come I can do this through air, but I can sit on that and it doesn't fall apart? Like, these are the weird questions. Or the fact, recently I found out that there's an island in the Indian Ocean on which a tribe has lived that hasn't been contacted for hundreds of years. And I was fascinated by, like, well, why has nobody contacted them? Because the Indian government protects them. And immediately I'm like, I want to go there. I want to learn everything there is to know about it. And so it's that kind of curiosity that truly has made me bread and butter for the last, I don't know, however 40 years or so that I've been making games. And unbelievably, I got a BAFTA for it, which still is a surprise to me. So we create worlds, whether they're sci-fi worlds or iconic characters that everybody knows. We basically create the worlds in which people play. So when I'm trying to explain to people what I do, I often say I'm an architect. It's easiest to imagine me as an architect. And the architect would draw plans for a house. And so if you take a look at that, these are some maps that I drew. I mean, they're not exactly fancy-looking plans, right? But these individual numbers point to things that are going to happen, events that would happen in a game world. And then the programmers are going to come in and they're going to sort of build the scaffolding for this. And the artists are going to act as interior designers. But if you think about what the artists build, right? Like, so here's our finished house. And how many of you would be thrilled to go there? It's like, there's nothing going on, right? But what if I said just around that corner was 10,000 euro? Now who's interested in going? All of you, come on now. I would be interested in going, but what if I said around that corner there's 10,000 euro around that corner? Except that light is rigged to explode the second you step over there. Now, is anybody interested in figuring out how they can make the light not explode? Right, so you can slowly see how this starts to turn into a kind of poor game that won't sell very well. But basically, my job is to be a party planner. I'm trying to take spaces and figure out what to do with them and how to keep people engaged. There's game designers who build theme parks. Entire theme parks, like Disneyland, has an entire staff of people who are designers, and this is what they do. So if you'd imagine something like this, the experience that would happen in this house would be radically different from what, say, might happen in this house, or this one, or, well, I guess especially this one. And so each suggests a different experience. And if we go back to Minecraft for a second, somebody, a designer, had to think of these questions. How do you walk? Like, that's a rule set. Like, what keys do you press to walk? Or what happens when you go out at night? And if you take a look at Monopoly, which we've all played, Monopoly was invented by a woman. I need the presentation people now to go, we did it. We did it. Good job. So Monopoly was invented by a woman. Okay. So every time I tell you guys to yell, you yell. The rest of you can join in. You collect $200 when you pass go. This is a rule. And so we basically are teaching players rules as we go through play. So designers basically create worlds, we create goals, we create challenges, and we create stories. Ultimately, we're trying to create an experience, whether that experience is on your iPhone, on a tabletop, or in VR. We all create these experiences. Whether it's something like, I don't know, some kind of weird zombie apocalypse here, or rescuing the prince from the castle, because I personally am a self-rescuing princess, and I don't need any prince to come look for me. I'll get myself out, thanks. But I also... We did it. Good on you. Okay, I'm just, please don't kick me off the stage. I promise I'll stop this. No, I won't. Anyway, this is me. I hadn't really learned to sit like a lady. Still haven't actually, but this is me. I think I'm 4 here. Unbelievably, I start to make games about a year later. And I come from, as you can probably tell, I come from the States. My family's Irish. I come from the States. I come from New York. And on the weekends there, we tend to have boot sales, except we sort of put it all out on the lawn. And we didn't have much money, so my mom would give me a dime. And with that dime, I could buy a game. But the games never had all their pieces. So I ended up with something like this. And I would just make my own games up. And I got to the point that I would eagerly await somebody to give me like a Monopoly board or something, anything, a new present, so that I could flip the new board over and make games on the back of it. So I had dozens of games like these. None of them were published. None of them were probably any good. But it was giving me practice. And I don't expect anybody to sort of just come right out of the gate and create something amazing. It does happen every once in a while, but you never know. You have to practice to get good at things. So in 1981, I joined this company. I'm not in this picture. I joined just after. It was a company called Surtech, and this is the first game I worked on. It was called Wizardry. These graphics, as you can tell, absolute state-of-the-art stuff, which they were in 1981. And this was the first computer I worked on, the Apple II. So the Apple II, this to me was the portal of discovery. It may not look like it to you, but man, if I could do something, if I could make something with code, I would do it. And this was the code that I used at the time. This is BASIC. See, you can probably read a lot of that, right? Go, subroutine, character string. I mean, there's a lot of next. You can read a lot of this stuff. It's easier than Irish. Maybe. Anyway, so this is what I did, and I loved code. I fell head over heels with it. Everything on your phone is built with code, and it's not nearly as hard as you think. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that if you liked playing with Legos, you would love code, because code is just building digital things. And so I got really into code. I convinced my high school to offer a class in it. I even put myself through college at Clarkson University, and as a random aside, I remember when I went into my guidance counselor, and she said, "Where would you like to go to school, Brenda?" And I said, "Clarkson." So Clarkson, where I come from in northern New York, was kind of the, I don't know, Trinity College of northern New York anyway. And she said to me, and I quote, "Brenda, you're never going to get into Clarkson." And so I applied only to Clarkson, and I applied early admission, and I got in. So, and graduated. Yay! We did it. All right. So can you guys just follow me around for a while? It would be so great just to have a crew of people like, and then they yell, "We did it." That would be great. Okay, so at this point, I'm creative director or lead game designer. And there's different types of game designers. I'll tell you about them. So a lead game designer is basically creating the creative vision for things. This woman up here, this is Amy Hennig. Does anybody know her? Absolute rock star of a person. If you've ever heard of Jack and Daxter, Naughty Dog, or Uncharted, Star Wars, it's Amy who's behind that. She is an absolute rock star in this industry. And it's not just Amy. There's whole teams of people that create these games. And like Pokemon Go was obviously a big game that was out there just a couple years ago that got all kinds of people walking, and people were just blown away by the health effects of a game, and it got a lot of attention for that. There's also level designers, and these are the people who create the experiences about how we're going to walk through a space. I mean, these are real jobs that pay actually pretty good money. Here's a map that I just took this from my husband's level designs. He's also a game designer. And this just shows how he might get through a specific level of one of his games. There's also content designers. Every game needs content. Like, what's the story of the game? Do any of you like to write stories? I mean, this is an actual job in games, believe it or not. You get to daydream, make stuff up for a living, and somebody pays you. I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? But it's the truth. So let's just try something like this. Let's do a quest. There's a wizard in a tower, and you cannot get into that tower. Why can't you get in? I'm calling on you. Yes, you. Oh, your friend's laughing at you. Now I'm calling on your friend. All right. You were saved. Why can't you get into the tower? It's locked. What do I need to unlock the door? A key. All right, I need the key. Where can I get the key, you poor person with the blue light shining on you? You don't know, who's guarding the key? A dragon's always a good thing to guard the key. How are we going to get the dragon away from the key? Now, everybody in the audience is like, please, no. Please don't call on me. So who am I going to call on? You're smiling. You look like you want to talk to me. Oh, but it's your friend laughing at you. See how easily you fell for that? And I just did it over here. You just laughed at her again. Anyway, how are we going to get the dragon away from the key? We're going to... Don't mess with her. We're going to kill the dragon. Just flat out kill it. All right, and this is an example of a very violent quest line. But you're very powerful if you can just outright kill a dragon. We did it, don't forget. Okay. I'm just using this every time I can now. I'm sick with power. Okay, so what can you do now to be a game designer? Well, the answer is you can make games. You can start making games, and they don't even have to be good games. They can look like this. You have to make games to get better. And if you say, like, but I don't know how to code, or have any of you ever heard the absolute fundamental lie that IT is for boys? So guess what? Do you know who invented programming? We did it. Her name was Ada Lovelace. Do you know who invented the most hardcore programming language? It's assembly. That's right, it was Kathleen Booth who invented assembly. Do you know who the original, and now I think of oh my gosh, mainframe. It was called the ENIAC. It had an all-female programming team, including Kay McNulty from County Donegal, Irish speaking. Who invented COBOL? Who invented Fortran? So don't forget, whose code put men on the moon? so the next time boys tell you that IT is for boys, tell them they were invited to the party, that it's our party, and we had it. You can get involved in things like Coder Dojo. And do you need to code to make games? I already told you coding's fun. And what about maths? Well, here's some maths for you. So I took that picture in the beginning. When I went to high school, it was 10th grade, the same grade you guys were in now, I felt kind of alone. Where am I going? Help. I felt kind of alone. And there was just one of me. I felt like the weirdo. This is how many people are going to be seeing your picture later. I don't know why they're following me on Twitter. I don't have any idea how this number crept up there, except that I love what I do and I make games for a living. So a bonus spoiler alert, women play the most games right now. So let's make some games, and thanks so much for inviting me to speak at this. And if any of you are interested in a transition year opportunity or an internship at Romero Games, just send me a tweet at @BR. Thanks. Bye-bye.